Hey, this is Neil Bawa, the mad scientist in multifamily, and you're listening to the Mailbox Money Show with Bronson Hill.
All right, welcome to the Mailbox Money Show. I am Bronson Hill. I am excited to be here. I hope you are excited to be here. Kaaren Hall is awesome. She is a self-made woman. Over the last 14 years, she has created $1 billion under management through her company called uDirect IRA. She's become a behemoth when it comes to really everything having to do with self-directed IRAs. SEP plans, solo 401ks. And you may be wondering, like, I know I should do this, or I've got some money tied up in a some sort of IRA at a company. She addresses that, like, how do you roll that over? What does that look like? I thought I can only do stocks and bonds. Well, it's not true. You can do all kinds of alternative assets. And a lot of people think they just don't have any more money, but then they've got all this money sitting in a retirement account that they can use to invest in real estate or other sorts of alternative assets. So I love talking about this topic, and you're gonna love Kaaren. You're gonna love this show. This was a great episode. She was recently on Bigger Pockets a little while ago. It was a good show as well. But really excited to jump in here and just talk about, especially the changes for 2024 that are coming. So let's do it. Welcome to the Mailbox Money Show. I have Kaaren Hall with me today. How are you, Kaaren?
Doing great, Bronson. Great to see you.
Awesome. Great to see you. It's always a joy. I always appreciate your smile. It's always great talking with you. You always have something great to share, and the education you provide is awesome. Well, today we're talking about retirement accounts, and I know it's your wheelhouse. We're talking about secrets, and there's some changes that are happening in the space. But give us a little background on how you got started with this, how you got started investing, and just a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. Well, I'm sure same is probably true with you, where everybody in this space started out doing something else. Am I right?
Yeah, yeah, right.
And then you got into real estate, and that was me. I was a radio announcer.
That's
And,
awesome.
yeah, I did that for 17 years, and then I made the logical transition into real estate early days, and became a realtor for a year. I realized that was a job for someone else. God bless you. And then from then I got into mortgage loan servicing, and I really enjoyed it. It's a lot like what we do at uDirect, actually. It's like account servicing. And
Yeah.
from then I got into loan origination and did that for a number of years. And then, of course, we had something called the Great Recession. And by the way, I did a little property management too. I'll throw that in. But during the Great Recession, I had to like reinvent myself because in Orange County, California, where I live, all the radio is up in LA. So, and then all my other skills involved real estate. And then during the mortgage meltdown, that really wasn't that helpful. So
Yeah.
I got into this space in 2007. And then in 2009, founded uDirect IRA Services.
That's awesome. We have some things we share. We were talking a little bit before the show that you were basically a DJ or a radio announcer, and I used to work at McDonald's years ago doing the
I see.
drive-through, and people used to tell me, "Hey, you've got a great golden voice. You should do, be an announcer." And so I guess now I'm living out that dream, but it's a little less dramatic than I thought. But Chris Voss in his book "Never Split
Oh,
the Difference"
gosh.
talks about the late night DJ voice.
Yes.
You're like, hey,
Yes.
hello, it's whatever. But you can actually use that voice to help kind of calm people down when they're upset, which I think is a really cool kind of thing to. Do you ever use that in your? I probably don't have too many people upset, but if you ever have somebody upset, like here and there, do you ever use that to kind of calm them down?
No, I haven't thought of that one. No, no, I just speak,
You just
but
speak,
you're
yeah.
right. A calm voice.
That's awesome. It's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing. I know you've done a lot of different things and a lot of different, great reputation. We both live in the LA area and really doing some innovative things in the space when it comes to education. And that's so really similar to what we do. We do a lot of education. We have our deals. You do education, and then you've got your services that you offer. Tell us a little bit about your educational programs, kind of what you create for people, and some of the things that you have a huge audience that has really you've really been to create a lot of value for. But what are some things that you found in the educational space that's been helpful for people?
Well, one of the things that we provide at uDirect IRA Services is a huge blog. So you'll love if you have any questions about self-directed IRAs, any aspect of them, you can find the answer in our blog. So it's pretty extensive. I serve on the board of directors for the Retirement Industry Trust Association. So when something new is coming down the pike, well, then we know about it, and so I can get it out to our account holders and to the world in general quickly. So that's nice.
Yeah, that's great. No, it is really great to be on the cutting edge of that. I know there are some changes coming to IRAs. We're going to talk about that in a minute, and some of the self-directed stuff as well. But talk to us a little bit about a lot of people that I've talked to. They just haven't become aware. It's even in conversations that, oh, I actually could use my retirement account and just stop doing the boring Wall Street stuff, and I could do alternative things. I could invest in real estate. I could buy properties, or I could invest in a syndication. What are some things that a lot of people don't understand about retirements and kind of next steps to be able to invest in non-Wall Street type of things?
Yeah, I think people don't know you've been able to self-direct for almost 50 years, right?
Wow.
That's kind of mind-blowing. It was 1975 when IRAs were created, and the minute they were created, they were self-directable. You didn't
Mm.
always have to invest in the stock market. It's anything except life insurance contracts and collectibles. Really it.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's interesting. I worked corporate for 10 years doing medical sales. And I remember there was, while I was working there, when you leave a company, you could do kind of a rollover and you could actually truly self-direct. Now, some directed IRAs, they're not really truly as self-directed as others. And that's where you guys come into play, where you allow people to invest in all types of different things. But I remember I had some conversations with it was HR or some of the people in the community like, well, we don't really recommend you doing it. They just want to keep you into these kind of general plans
Yeah,
that are very, but are you guys doing a lot of kind of Wall Street or non-stocks bonds kind of stuff? Or what are some of the things you guys
100%.
involved with? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. We have, just under $1 billion under management, all in alternative assets.
Wow. All in alternatives. That's amazing. Now, there are some limitations. I think that you can't there's kind of a self-dealing thing. You can't like have a rental that you operate or things like that. What are some of the limitations that people should know if they're starting one of these or getting involved in certain types of investments?
Yeah, there's a whole framework of things called prohibited transactions. So if you want to be a rule book person and you want to go deep on this, you can look in the Internal Revenue Code. It's IRC 4970. But if you have a rental, there are some things you can do without it being prohibited. Like you can screen the tenants, you can pick up the rent check, that's made payable to the IRA. You can hire third-party vendors to do the work. So you can do some property management without it being considered a prohibited transaction. But to keep clear prohibited transactions, you keep the deals arm's length. So that is that you're not going to have your IRA buy a property from a disallowed person like your parents or your kids or your spouse or yourself. So
Right.
you steer clear. Just arm's length is the rule of thumb really there.
Yeah, yeah, and for a lot of folks, I know some people are very familiar with retirement accounts and they have something going. There are different types of retirement accounts. I know there's kind of the standard self-directed IRA. There's also something called a 401, like a solo 401k. There's a SEP plan. Can you just talk about some of the different plans that are out there and kind of who's eligible for what?
I would love to. And just understand all of these are self-directed. So if you can
Okay.
have a SEP, it doesn't mean it's not it's self-directed. So it's a traditional IRA, a Roth, a SEP, which is a simplified employee pension, a simple IRA, which, obviously if the government calls it simple, it's not. That's a savings incentive match plan for employers. But the SEP really replaced it. It's just so much better. And then, of course, you have the solo 401k, which is also which self-directing just means you're investing outside of the industry. It just means that your retirement bucket holds alternative assets. That's all.
Yeah. Now I know there's some there's some technical things about this. Once you kind of get set up, it's pretty, in general, it's pretty plug and play. And there's, just generally some minor fees that kind of go along with it and stuff like that. But how does it work? There's something called unrelated business income tax, which as a syndicator, we get concerned about because if someone's in a self-directed IRA and we use leverage to go buy a property, there could be a sneaky tax when that property is sold. Can you
Yeah,
talk a little bit about that and just some of the other kind of workarounds that are available for that?
I would love to, and it's another thing we have on our blog. If you want to go deep on it, you can look this up. But yeah, UBIT and UDFI, sort of cousin twin taxes. And again, rule book time, the IRS, irs.gov, publication 590 talks about this. Okay, so anyone who's listening, you want to look up the rule book, that's where it is. But UBIT and UDFI. So UDFI is unrelated debt financed income tax. So that means if your IRA earns any income at all because of leverage, that income, not the whole amount returned, but the amount that's based on leverage, is taxable. And a lot of times when people get into private equity, syndications, and that syndication is taking on debt, a lot of times the investor doesn't know upfront that means that their IRA is going to need to file a 990T tax form. Like you and I, we do our taxes. We do a 1040. Well, the IRA does a 990T. So if the asset sponsor is using borrowed money, leverage, then the IRA investor in that syndication is going to need to pay that UDFI tax, and that can be a surprise.
Yeah, it can be, and just so people, understand, it's something I haven't, in the syndications we've done, I haven't seen anybody actually been penalized. I've heard stories of it, and it's not just like it's a 100% thing, but it can happen where somebody, syndication 100K becomes 200K, but 80% of that was leveraged. Then maybe that $80,000 of gains that were from the leverage could be taxed at normal income, which is really sneaky because people are not expecting to pay that, and so that's where it is important to have a good partner like Kaaren and their group to just be able to find resources for. What are some changes? I know there's a lot of changes continually happening. There's some changes with the LLCs that have happened recently, but every year there's new changes with IRAs, with limits and different things. But you're talking about some pretty significant changes that are coming down the pike. Why don't you talk about some changes that are coming up in 2024?
Yeah, I've been in this industry since 2007, and for the most part, nothing has changed. And then lately, oh wow, we have all these. There are nuances, really, but one of the nuances is this new corporate tax that you have to file. You have to register your LLC in the year 2024. You might be familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of it? We have a blog.
I have.
Figure.
Yeah.
But so you can look it up on our website. But what's important about it is if you have an IRA-owned LLC, also called a checkbook IRA, that IRA will need to register. And you'll need to do that this year as soon as possible. You can talk to your tax advisor about how to do it. We can help you or send you in the right direction for how to do that. But what's interesting is if you have a solo 401k that has one of these special purpose LLCs in it, that solo K it does not have to register. It's LLC. That's a nuance, and it's good to know. But that's definitely new for this year. And then we have a tremendous number of account holders holding that special purpose LLC, and it will affect them all.
No, I really do. They've done this as well for, this applies for anybody that has a retirement account, but also if you have an LLC, like an investment LLC or something like our trust potentially, what's the reason that the government has done this? I know this has just come out, for January 2024. Do you know what, you got to register it,
I don't know. It's probably for public safety or for, you know what I'm saying? They're just doing it. I'm not going to get political. So no, that they're just doing it, and we'll just comply. And they're not asking a lot of information. They just want to know who you are.
Yeah. There have been more stuff that have come out too, even just some of the know your customer, and at least we've been doing funds, and I'm sure for you guys as well, there's the anti-money laundering stuff and just a lot of regulations that go into it that it seems like stuff's, yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're right. It's all about safety. That's right. Yeah, the word safety just popped in my head. That's it. It's also about identifying bad actors and how to find them, and that can be very helpful because in this space, of course, this is where the money is. And so, why do you rob banks? Dillinger. It's because that's where the money is. That's what he said, 100 years ago. And so it's the same thing now. IRAs can be subject to fraud and bad actors. So something that adds a layer of safety is always welcome.
So speaking of safety, it's when you get in alternative assets, there's some things that exist in the traditional world. In my background, I was a registered investment advisor for a few years. And so I see some of the more traditional, it was a lot about suitability, just getting people into the right investment. When people start to manage their own money or to do their self-directed or checkbook IRA type of stuff, it really puts the power back into the individual, which is great. But there's also just some questions of for someone listening is how do I really vet these deals, right? Because everything can sound great. I've found, everything sounds great until something goes wrong. And it's like, oh, maybe I should have actually paid attention to that, or I should have looked at this or whatever. And a lot of it's a learning process. But do you have any just kind of some guidelines when it comes to, and I'm sure on your blog you have plenty of information, but just maybe a few kind of highlights that you would share on vetting deals?
Well, I'll tell you this, in the RETA organization, a lot of times they call on me to do a fraud panel. And so I've done several because we've been able to be crime fighters and to a certain degree. And so one year I brought in a gentleman who had actually been a fraudster. He worked in the Chicago Board of, commodities. He was a commodity in Chicago. And so he didn't mean to. That's how a lot of this starts off with everybody has good intentions, but then things weren't going so well. And so he tried to fake it so that it looked good. And it turned into a Ponzi, and it became a big deal. And eventually he says, look, I can't handle it. I can't stand the stress. I don't mean to be doing this. And I'm just way in over my head. So just, hey, come and get me. Here's the proof. I'm a fraudster.
Wow.
So they said, okay, threw him in jail for a number of years. And now he's out and he is helping people to avoid this kind of fraud. And a lot of times you can do all your due diligence up front and everything can be just crystal clear and perfect. But the due diligence has to occur after you invest. And one of the things you can ask for going in is, you tell them, I want certified financials. I want to see your financials. But with this guy, what he did is he faked his financials. He was so smart that he was able to make it look like it was, certified. So maybe you're looking at the financials and it has the watermark or a stamp from some sort of like some large financial house. So call them and say, did you audit this person's books? And so it's not just enough to look at the audited financials, but call the institution that supposedly did the audit and ask their opinion of the audit, you see? So it can go pretty deep. And so when you invest, I think a track record is a good thing to look for, because I've just seen so many people, even in our small space in Southern California, start off with great intentions and end up in a world of hurt. So that's why you have to be accredited, is because you have to be able to afford to lose the money. Unless you have a crystal ball, sometimes you're just not going to know that you're dealing with somebody that runs into a situation where they choose fraud. So I would go with somebody who has a good track record and talk to their investors like, hey, how was your experience? Were you paid as agreed? What did that look like?
Yeah, it's interesting. My book, Fire Yourself, and I know you gave out to some of your audience too, which I'm grateful for that. We talk about, how to vet a deal. And on one hand, like I've got some steps in there too, similar to kind of what you suggested. And on the other hand, like, I even do with partners that I work with, I typically do a background check on each partner just to make sure that, there's something I didn't miss. But with that said, Bernie Madoff would have passed a background check. The guy helped start the NASDAQ. I mean, there's just things that and even like this situation you mentioned where where Bernie actually came forward and said, hey, this whole thing was a scam, and he turned it in. And there was a book I read. I read books on this occasionally just because it's really interesting. There's a woman, I can't remember her name, but she had the largest, I think in the U.S. history, it was like a $400 million woman-led Ponzi scheme that was about liquor licenses in California. And she had a hard money program for it, whatever. And it, like, again, it started out legit, but then she found somebody within Chicago Title who basically was able to kind of rubber stamp this, whatever. So Chicago Title, I'm getting sued and all this stuff, whatever. So sometimes even these big endorsements from these bigger groups doesn't always mean that it's safe and secure. And the only thing I can say is you try to do, it makes sense. You talk to other people, you kind of look at everything, but you also have some diversification because, if one deal out of 20 goes bad, just for whatever reason, whether it's a scam or something goes wrong with the investment, then you're okay. But if that's half your money, then you're going to be in big trouble. So, what do you say about diversification? Is that obviously part of the strategy as well, or how do you kind of speak to that?
Yeah, well, I mean, when it comes to diversification, financial advisors always recommend it, and that's the thing. Self-directed IRA providers aren't financial advisors, so I think that anybody who's going to use a self-directed IRA is going to need to get financial advice and then execute using this tool of a self-directed IRA. But yes, of course, diversification. No, it's just common sense.
Right. Yeah. When I was an investment advisor, that was one thing that it was really hard to tell people. And even now, you really can't tell someone how they should allocate their portfolio. And so for me, I'm pretty strong on alternative assets. I might be 95% alternative assets, some cash, some different things, whatever. But other people will be like, oh, like 5 or 10% is good. Or should I own gold? Or should I own all these different things? So but it's something that's really difficult just based on their own risk tolerance, their own way that they see things. But obviously having some diversification can be really good. Let's talk a little bit about kind of the market in 2024. Obviously, in real estate, the last couple of years, it's a very different market than we saw before, where interest rates have gone up the fastest in over 40 years. We've seen, obviously, if you have single family houses, you're doing probably fine because you have long-term debt. But we've seen some hits in the commercial space, particularly things like multifamily with bridge debt or other types of properties, office space, things like that. What do you see I know this is a very broad question, but anything you want to say about 2024 in terms to, rates and kind of where we're headed and just any opinions you have in regards to your crystal ball?
Oh, which I don't have, but I mean, what I see, what I hear and listening to different podcasts and things, but I mean, we really did see things turn on a dime. I was buying some, single family homes in the Midwest and then the rates just skyrocketed. So I kind of curtailed that for a bit personally. But I think how I see 2024 affecting our account holders, you mentioned having to, for these multifamily deals, they have to go out and get new debt. They have to, get, what do you call that? They have to re-up their debt or
Oh
just,
yeah, they have to. Well, they just need to get they either extend the loan or they go and they refinance and get another loan.
uh,
Yeah.
well, because of this, we've got a lot of capital calls in
Right.
self-directed IRAs. So what that means, and this is super important, when you have a self-directed account, you need to leave money, idle cash in there.
Wow.
Because if you get a capital call, you need to have your IRA pay that
Ah,
capital call. It can't come from your personal cash. So always leave a cushion in your self-directed IRA for emergencies like capital calls, or if you're in straight up real estate, what if you need a new roof? That can be as crazy as rates because it's an expense. But I think what the Fed has said that they're going to hold rates for a while. So I think they're going to hold steady, is what I believe I've heard. And I don't know. We always seem to do okay. Peaks and valleys is it's always been that way. Peaks and
yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I've actually wondered that. I've had some investors want to put cash in, but you're saying, yeah, if they are going to add funds, it has to come from the retirement account for them. They can't just add cash. They actually have to have it in a retirement account, or else it would just dilute them for whatever shares they had
that's
in the
right.
retirement account. Okay, interesting.
And so, yeah, capital calls are something that we've really seen in 2023, and I think we'll continue to see that into 2024.
So I want to ask you a question a little bit on the spot here when it comes to types of investments that people invest. $1 billion under management. You have probably tens of thousands of people with accounts that you've worked with over the last 20 years. You've done a lot of great things in the space. What are some of the most unique things that have come across where it's like, oh, that's really interesting, and I hadn't really thought anybody can do that. Like just something really different.
The truth of it is most of the deals are pretty vanilla, in the sense
Yeah.
that we see the same thing over and over again. Number one in our whole industry is syndications,
Right.
private equity. So that is the number one asset class for a self-directed IRA period. Notes are also super popular, where your IRA is the bank and you're lending money. That's one kind of note. It can be secured or unsecured. Another form of this is buying and investing in, performing and non-performing debt. You're buying
Mhm.
pools of loans. Very, very popular to do. So those are the most popular. But I think in my career, with the crazy things I've seen, which are sometimes too risky that we don't really take these things on anymore. But like one kid, a young man, bought some tickets to a Super Bowl game with his Roth
With
IRA.
his Roth IRA.
Did you know a ticket is real estate?
Oh, wow. And he was
It-
able to resell it and make money with his Roth.
Correct.
Now,
Correct.
that wouldn't be self-dealing though. If he's buying and selling it, it's considered an investment. He just,
Well, his IRA bought it and his IRA sold it. So it wasn't
okay.
self-dealing, and he didn't sit there. He didn't, enjoy the seats personally.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was something that he did, but that's kind of an iffy thing. Another thing, people have invested in some asset classes that have turned out to be super risky. We don't do this anymore, but like maybe mango trees or something, where you buy a tree when it's little, you pay
Yeah.
$1 for a tree, and then when it's grown in say 5 or 10 years, then you've got a crop, and that can be an asset class. So I would, if I was going to invest in something like that, I would probably want to do it as a syndication, and that would be the asset structure for myself, not the
Right.
tree.
Plant a tree and watch it grow. Now, there's some stories of this where like the billionaire Peter Thiel had a Roth IRA that he'd use. And I think he did startup shares or something. And it was like $1 billion literally in like a Roth IRA. And I think they changed some of the rules on this because
Yeah, they did.
he went from like being worth almost nothing for that account to like $1 billion.
Well, you
But
know
it,
what he did? The result of that was he created this special investigation by the Department of Treasury, and they wanted to find out every, large IRA, and are they getting away and not paying taxes? And the truth of it is, no, all these people, they're like 400 accounts that are super, super large in the entire United States.
yeah,
They're in the millions. That because IRAs are small
yeah,
in
compared to
relatively.
big accounts. Yeah.
But they found out these people were just following the rules. They were just playing by the book, using the structure only on a higher level with more zeros at the end.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. And that's I think really good investing is just trying to find unique things that make sense. So maybe it's mango trees, maybe it's something else. And, it doesn't have to be super exotic, but just finding things that make sense for you as an investor. And I think some of the best investment strategies are not that sexy, right? It's just, they say great investing should be like watching paint dry or about as exciting as watching grass grow. And if you want excitement, which I'm actually going to Vegas tomorrow, not to have excitement, but to go to a conference, you take $800 and go to Vegas, and that will give you excitement. But with investing, it should be pretty boring. A lot of famous people say that. What are some of the just a couple more questions here, and then we'll kind of get to the end here. But I wanted to ask for you, what's a book recommend or a tool that you've discovered recently that helps you with your investing or with your life?
Yeah, well, my favorite book of all time was Think and Grow Rich. So that's not recent. That goes back a while. But I just love that book, and I always recommend it to people that are getting started, because it really does teach you the foundations of what it really takes to, the discipline of it and just the approach to life. So I always recommend that one. But I think I don't know, when it comes to investing, one of the things that I see is I look at what other people are doing, and I see what's succeeding and failing. And the way I do that is by participating in real estate investor groups. I know you are active in Pasadena, Phoebe. I'll be speaking there soon. And I have OCREIA, Orange County Real Estate Investors Association. So the various, and you can go on any meetup anywhere and look up, investor clubs and go find and talk to people. What are they doing? What's succeeding for them? It's a wonderful community. People are almost always willing to share, hey, this worked for me, this didn't. And that's where I would go to make decisions, is to talk to people.
Yeah, no, it's really great to talk to people. That book, Think and Grow Rich, is a great book I've read as well. And, there's a quote from that says, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. And it just goes with a lot of other philosophies of, like, if you can visualize it, if you can see it, if you can keep it in front of you, have goals, read the goals every day, focus on it. And you've obviously done that. I mean, to have $1 billion under management in the years you've done is really impressive, Kaaren. That's really amazing. Well, I want to appreciate you for coming on the show today, and for also just all the value you add to the industry, to individuals, to my life. And you've sent me a few blogs. Hey, look at this. And I know you have so many resources available for individuals and investors, and it's really great to be able to partner with you on some of those. How can people get in touch with you and connect with you?
The best way is through our website, and send us an email at info@udirectira.com. So the small U, big D, udirectira.com.
It's awesome. Kaaren, thanks for being here today. Look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you so much. And I hope 2024 is an awesome year for uDirect and you as well.
Thank you.
All right, great interview with Kaaren Hall. Just again, a lot to share, a lot of value she's bringing. Not only somebody who has a company, but also a thought leader in that space. And really, with her blog, if you are interested in any sort of questions around that stuff, their team as well as the blog is very helpful to learn more, because there are changes that are happening here. There's changes, as she mentioned, if you have an entity or some sort of a trust account or something that invests, you now need to register. So there's a little more pieces that go into it now of things that you need to do. But I love that quote we were talking about at the end about Think and Grow Rich. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. And so I hope for you have some goals for 2024. You've put some things in place so that you can go towards your goals. We are planning the end of this year, likely the first weekend in October, the Advanced Investing Summit. We had almost 200 people there last year. We're hoping for 350 to 500 this year. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a 2.5-day event in LA. Some big time speakers. We're going to have more information about that in a little bit. If you haven't joined our investment club, go to bronsonequity.com, check that out. And also check out my book, Fire Yourself, on Amazon and where books are sold. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Mailbox Money Show.
You've been listening to the Mailbox Money Podcast. For more free resources, articles, and videos, go to bronsonequity.com. There you can download your copy of the special report, The Single Best Investment Strategy During and After a Pandemic. None of the information shared here is an offer to buy a specific investment, and this is for educational purposes only. Consult your financial, legal, and tax professionals and use your own common sense before making any investment decisions. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to tune in next time for more Mailbox Money.